Okay, so some people ask how you tell the difference between a maple tree and, say, a pine tree, an oak tree, basically any kind of tree, or a sugar maple between the different kinds of maple trees. This right here is a sugar maple tree. You can usually tell. I have two taps in this tree. I got one on right here and then one right here. And I have one bucket running to it because this tree is kind of young, so I don't want to put too many taps in it, or else you could, I don't know if you could hurt the tree, but it's not good for it. And you can kind of see how the tree is leaning a little. So the way that you can justify where to set your taps is, since this tree is actually kind of easy, it kind of leans this way, so the sap is obviously going to run this way. So as you can see, if I move back a little here, the tree goes this way. So the sap is going to run down the tree, and it is going to come from this side because the tree is kind of coming this way. How sap works is it actually starts in the roots of the tree, and it comes up and it freezes in the tree. So what happens at night when it freezes, it'll come up, it'll freeze, and then when it warms up during the day, that's when it'll come back down the tree. And normally it would go back down into the roots, but if you have a tap in the tree like I do, then it'll run through the tap and it'll run into the bucket. Right here I have some sap in there. That'll boil down to almost nothing. Maybe a spoonful of maple syrup, that right there. I'd say that's probably 1.5 gallons, 2 gallons. That'll boil right down to almost nothing. It's usually a 40 to 1 ratio. So that's how you can justify how much syrup you get, depending on how thick you like it. So how you tell if it's a maple tree or not is, one, if you tap the tree and sap starts running, then it's obviously a maple tree. And two, it's kind of got this bark that is almost like shingles, I guess. That's the best way I could describe it. It's not all flat on the tree. If it was flat on the tree, then it would be an oak tree. You don't want to tap an oak tree because you're not going to get maple syrup. Now, you can also tap birch trees to get birch syrup, and you can make all kinds of stuff. You can, birch is kind of like maple. You can do the same stuff with birch that you can with maple. It doesn't taste the same though. It's not as good and not as old-fashioned as a good maple tree. But you can kind of tell sometimes on a maple tree, there will be little white blotches on the tree, and that's how you can tell what a maple tree is. And down at the bottom, there's some white blotches right there. Another way you can kind of tell if it's a maple tree is, this one isn't a very good example, but all the branches up top, they'll have a buddy to them. So if there's a branch that goes here, there'll be a branch that goes that way. So it's kind of twin, it's symmetrical on both sides. So you want to kind of look for that in a maple tree. I'll find one that has that. But yeah, this right here is got 2 taps in it. One way you can tell how many taps you want to put in is by putting your arms, it basically goes by the length of the tree. Now the way I tell is if I can put my arms all the way around the tree, this is where you can become a real tree hugger. If you put your arms around the tree and kind of hug the tree, and you can't connect your arms on the other side, then it is good for about 3 taps. You want to put 3 taps around the tree, kind of put them about 4 to 6 inches apart, because if you put them too close, then it's just going to be running on the same stream, so you're not going to get 2 different streams. That's what you're kind of looking for. You can see mine are about 6 inches apart here, and they're on the same side of the tree because I'm still at the same tree. It's leaning, so you wouldn't want to put one on this side. But yeah, like this one, I can connect my arms around, so I justify, all right, 2 taps. If it's a small one, then either you don't want to tap it at all, or if you're really in high demand of maple syrup, then you could put 1 tap in it. But I personally don't do that because I have enough maple trees on my farm to make plenty of maple syrup. I'm at a bigger maple tree here, and actually this is a good example of what wind can do to your taps. If you don't have them set up almost perfectly, then the wind can really screw you up. I have rocks underneath this one, and it must not have done too good with the wind. We do get quite a bit of wind, so I will get this where the hose will fall out of the tree and the bucket will fall over. But I check them consistently so I don't lose too much. So this is a hole for sap. Usually what I do to tell is with a big tree like this, it's not gonna be too far into the tree where sap will start running out. So with a big tree like this, I haven't measured it, but I usually go about a finger, or like the first little thing of your finger here, and deep. And you want to go in at an angle up, because the sap will run down into your hose. So you get your hose, you can put it right into where you drilled your hole, and then you'll run it right into your bucket. And I guarantee you that in about 3 minutes, this will be knocked over again. I have these kind of in a cross formation, so it kind of holds the bucket there. But again, like I said, when it's strong enough, it'll take anything down. But this tree is so big that I have 3 taps in it, okay? I can't reach my arms when I put it all the way around. But as you can see, like I said, this branch will have a buddy to it. It's a Y. That's what a lot of oak trees. It's a lot of what maple trees are. They will have buddy branches. So like this one here, there's one that goes up there. So that's how you can kind of justify it's a maple tree. That, and if you have a tree this big in your backyard, I mean, it could be an oak tree, but if it looks like this, I can guarantee you that it is a maple tree. I have some taps over here. There's 3 maple trees right in a row there, but what I'm going to do is I tap these 2 this year, and next year I'll tap this one right here. This one's a little smaller right here, so this is the one I didn't tap. I'll let it get another year. I mean, it ain't going to be too much bigger, but it'll get another year. But I have 2 taps on this one and 2 taps on this one, because I can put my arms around it, but I can reach them, but it's big enough to the point where it's okay. Alrighty, so after you get done boiling your sap, you usually take it down into the house and finish it in there, so you don't burn it on the wood stove, because you have to get it to a certain temperature. When you're boiling it, you have to get it 7 degrees over your boiling point. Now your boiling point will vary given your elevation, depending on where you live. So that, well, you'd have to look that up, like figure out what elevation you are. You can use any kind of land guide is what I have. It gives me all my property lines, but it'll also tell me my elevation. So that's how you can check that out. But so I have the boiler here, and it's wet out, but people are concerned about wildfire starting this time of the year because everything is dead, but everything is growing. So everything on top is dry, so it can start a fire. So I like to sit here, I like to watch it a little. I dump some water on it, that's why, right by a pond. Pretty convenient. I got my bucket right there. I was just filling it up. I just put about 25 gallons of water, cold water, in it. Sorry about that, my camera cut out. I don't know what was going on. Anyway, but so that is basically it for the outside part of boiling down maple syrup, getting the sap, boiling it, and getting it ready to get into the house. So just a little bit about the setup that I use for maple syrup. So what I use This is an old fuel tank. Yes, it's been cleaned, obviously. But I have a hole for a chimney. I don't currently have a chimney for it. I have to get some 8-inch pipe to put on it. But there is a feed door down here. I have it set on a nice rock. You can kind of see the water running out from where I dumped water in it. But I have a nice feed door. You just open it up, put the wood in. You can also kind of control your draft. This is for your draft too. You can put your wood through the top also. You can't really see in there. It's all saturated with water. So the container that I use, this is a 15-gallon. This is aluminum. It's all welded together. You can see the welds in the corners. Like I said, it does hold 15 gallons. This right here, it kind of, when you push it over the fire, it'll sit there and the fire will come up over. There's that square hole there. And the fire will heat it up, and then you can pull it off. As your sap gets closer, it's kind of pitched, so it'll come to here. And this is open right now, so you can kind of see. I gotta dump this out anyway. Usually what I'll do, if you open up your valve here, and then you kind of pitch it up, kind of hard to do with one hand, but it'll all run right to here. It'll dump it right out. You usually have a catch can or something right there. This does look like boiled maple syrup, but it's not. It's just water. I do that too sometimes because, like I said, this is aluminum. So when it heats up, it'll warp because I lean it up on that one edge. So I just put some water in it to cool it down, and I keep it off the side of my tracks here, and it'll cool, it'll unwarp itself, and it'll kind of go back to the form that it was originally in. But like I said, you slide it right up over, and you can kind of ventilate how much air you want to get into the fire, or how much heat you want on the pan. So yeah, that's basically my whole entire setup on how I do the maple syrup. And obviously I use wood. I cut it all myself. I get it out of the woods. God knows I have a lot of woods all around me. So yeah, that is the outside part. That is what is consisted of making maple syrup as far as outside. It gets a little more complex. It gets a little more precise whenever you go in the house. So I'll take you guys in there with me, and I'll show you how we do that, how we get it up to temperature, how we keep it steady at temperature, and how we check the temperature, and when we know when it's done. Because if you don't do it, you won't know, and it's kind of hard to judge on your first time. Usually you'll get your first time, it'll be a little too runny, a little too thick. It just depends. If it's a little too thick, then you kind of burned it. If it's a little too runny, then you could boil it down some more. But yeah, I've been on my vacation from school. This is what I've been consisted of doing, that and construction work and work on the farm. So I'm using all my knowledge from school and all my core classes every day in my life. You wouldn't think it, but farmers and people that do maple syrup and construction workers use your core classes all the time. Another thing I would like to add is, you know when to stop doing maple syrup when trees start blossoming. This one is blossoming already. When the trees start blossoming, that is when the maple trees will start blossoming, and that's when they will be needing the sap and the nutrients in the trees to start going on with summer life. So this tree right here is blossoming, this one is blossoming. The maple trees are actually not blossoming yet. I haven't seen any, but you want to stop before they blossom, so you want to kind of pay attention to the other trees around them, pay attention to the other trees in the surrounding areas, just to make sure that you're not harming the tree in any way possible. But yeah, that's how you can tell when to stop tapping your trees and when to pull your taps, and wait for the next year for maple syrup season. Okay, so when you have it in the house here, you'll put your heat on high. You want it on high so it'll boil. and you have this thermometer. It's called a candy thermometer. It basically gives you the temperature. I mean, pretty self-explanatory. But you want it at my place on the farm, the elevation, like with everything considered in, it is 112 degrees Fahrenheit for boiling. So it's getting up there. We'll set this right here, and we will let it get up to temperature, and we'll check it. It should be around 210. I bet you it's probably 208, 209 because it's not at a full boil yet. We want it to, what I shoot for is about 220. You want it to get 7 over the boiling point, but I like to get a little more. So I set for an even 220. It's just easy to remember, easy to get to, easy to look at on the thermometer. So that's how you do that. I also have a little bit more sap over here since my boiler is so big that I can't boil it all down without burning it. Like, I can't get it to the pan evenly. So what I usually do is I will set it right here. And this stuff is sticky, so I would not recommend touching it. But you just take your cup, you just dump it in there. You don't want to get it too high because once it gets up to boiling, if it boils over, you will have a real mess. And you do not want to get over about 223 degrees unless your boiling point is higher. But at my place, you do not want to get over that because at that point, it will boil over. You can see this mist, that is water evaporating from the maple syrup. So what will be, it gets this brownish tint from the wood. If you just did it over propane, it would be like a clear color, more blonde color. But this mist is all water. If you hold your hand over it, and you kind of feel your hand, you can kind of see. Hand gets a little wet. So with that being said, everybody from Mountain View and everybody that watches my YouTube channel, that is how you make maple syrup from beginning to end, and how you tell the difference in your trees and your sap and all that, all the preciseness, getting it to temperature, making sure that it's perfect on your boiling, making sure that it rises up, you don't boil over your pan, and just making sure that you make good quality maple syrup. I hope everybody's doing okay with this coronavirus going on. It's taking a damper on a lot, especially with the economy and with everybody's everyday lives. Nobody's working, everybody's social distancing, especially all the union workers. It's really taken a big toll on this country, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that we can bounce back from it and not have too many complications after this is over. The main part is hopefully everybody's staying safe, everybody is keeping their sanity as they are being in the house with parents and loved ones and siblings, and we all know how that can be. Arguments can start easy when you're short-tempered. But yeah, as you guys can see, going along in a day with me, I use schooling almost every day, but in my own aspect of it. You wouldn't realize, but you do. You get used to it after a while. As you learn something in school, you'll kind of pick up on it as you are proceeding with the job that you're doing. But yeah, I mean, with this maple syrup is basically a science. It's a math. Not too much history behind it. Not too much English. I mean, the selling part of it and inventory, I guess, could be considered math and English. Or history and English, I guess. I mean, history-wise for me, knowing the history of your trees, knowing the history of the land that you're making the maple syrup on, knowing how old the trees are, rotations for the trees, that sort of thing. So, yeah, even the history of how my grandpa used to make it, my great-grandpa used to make it. Maple syrup has gone back a long time on my farm and for all my relatives. So it's something that we all like to have with our breakfast in the morning. But with that, I hope everybody's doing good. I hope everybody's staying safe, and see you guys whenever we go back to school. And I'll keep doing these everyday life things, seeing where schooling is used in your everyday life for a farmer, a construction worker, somebody that makes maple syrup, maybe even somebody that sits at home all day. You never know what you can use from what you learn in school and what you learn in just everyday life. It kind of all mixes together. Like I said, it's you never know it. You never guess it. But yeah, I'm thankful for being on the farm through the whole social distancing thing. I have space to roam around. I don't have to stay trapped in one area. I have acres upon acres to roam, but that's not everybody else's case. So I hope everybody's doing good, and I'll see you guys later.